Good morning, Dan and Amy. There have been some remarkable statements made over the weekend in response to the release of the Nunes memo. We just discussed a couple of them with Matt Connenny from the Washington Free Beacon last hour. Adam Schiff suggesting that the release of this memo will prevent us from preventing the next Oklahoma City bombing.
Yeah, because no one's going to want to snitch on their neighbor because their name might be released. I didn't get that when I read the memo. Did you?
Jim Comey's tweet with continuing to grind his axe. And then there's this statement from Philip Mudd, who we've had on the show before. He's a CNN national security analyst, former CIA counterterrorism official. Listen to this. His interpretation, rather bellicose response to the president, I guess, on the topic of the memo's release.
Which the president's talking about basically corruption at the FBI today, but we oppose the leadership. The workforce is going to look at this and say, this is an attack on our ability to conduct an investigation with integrity. There's hundreds of agents and analysts working on this investigation. It's not just Christopher Wray, the FBI director. So the FBI people, I'm going to tell you, are ticked. And they're going to be saying, I guarantee it, you think you can push us off this because you can try to intimidate the director? You better think again, Mr. President. You've been around for 13 months. We've been around since 1908. I know how this game is going to be played. We're going to win.
We're going to win? We're going to win? Win what? I think that's an interpretation that extends beyond the four corners of the issue of the memo, number one. Number two, oh, by the way, Mr. Mudd, you've had the aforesaid Christopher Wray ask for and receive the deputy director's resignation. Do the rank and file, do they respond positively to the controversy surrounding Lisa Page and Peter Strzok? Is that something that makes them angry, or do they rally to the defense of the conduct that has been unearthed among senior officials at the FBI? As well as, I guess, actually, I would call Strzok and Page senior officials at the FBI. They both had important positions, have important positions. For more on this topic of the memo, the culture at FBI, maybe perhaps some insights into the reaction per what Mr. Mudd had to say, we're pleased to be joined again by James Fitzgerald. He is the famed criminal profiler who cracked the Unabomber case. By the way, if you haven't seen Manhunt on Netflix, this is about the Unabomber case. Sam Worthington plays James Fitzgerald. Paul Bettany plays Ted Kaczynski. I mean, it is an excellent series. It is riveting. Okay. It really, really enjoyable. It gets a lot of details that certainly I had forgotten since all these years passed. He's also a consultant for the TV show Criminal Minds and the author of the book, A Journey to the Center of the Mind. We're pleased to be joined by retired FBI Special Agent James Fitzgerald. Thank you for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Great to be with you guys again.
So how did you, react to both the release of the memo and then some of the reactions to the memo? Where do you fall on this?
Well, I believe the memo had to be released. I believe there's too much going on at FBI HQ, 7th floor. We used to call it the Puzzle Palace for a reason. When I was there, most agents did their best to avoid any sort of a stint at headquarters. Most people don't join the FBI to, be high-ranking bosses dealing with politicians, et cetera. You go in there to arrest bad guys. Mm-hmm. But when all of this slowly started morphing, the information happening about Carter Page and who's being surveilled and who's being wiretapped, I knew just something inherently wasn't right here. As a young agent in the academy in Quantico and years later in service trainings, whatever, we would just know if there was any sort of a investigation involving the mayor of your town or the governor of the state or any politician, even a local politician, lower level. These are handled with the most sensitive kid gloves, if you will, and approvals had to go to the very top to interview people around them or certainly set up wiretaps or surveillances of political people. And that's for a reason. We have a constitutional republic, and we have to keep these types of checks and balances in place. But something went wrong in the last, 18 months, 2 years in terms of this campaign, this election cycle, and people got took advantage of the situation and did things they shouldn't have done. And I'm glad there is some level of transparency coming out now, and I'm hoping there's more memos to come, quite frankly.
But, I mean, so the FBI used information paid for by the Democrats to spy on a Trump advisor. When you heard that, were you disappointed? Did a little bit of you die inside?
Well, I mean, I had to hear the legitimacy of it. Okay, is there something here? Is there a there? And quite frankly, I haven't heard that yet. This guy, Carter Page, is still walking the streets. He's a military academy graduate, and I mean, yeah, he has apparently some business dealings with Russians. Well, okay, so what? Many people do. And then he is in this made-up Christopher Steele dossier, the information he gets, the, quote, unverified and salacious, as Comey put it, that information is used, and then circular reporting, they quote, I believe, Yahoo in the warrant affidavit. There's just too much that went wrong here. There's too much that just shouldn't have ever been put on paper or testified to in front of any judge. And I was shocked when all these pieces started coming together, and I don't believe it ever should have happened the way it did. And I stand by that.
And the senior leadership, both the FBI and DOJ, I mean, these conflicts of interest from Andy McCabe's wife, who, by the way, told House Intel Committee there would have been no FISA application to surveil Carter Page absent the information in that dossier. So it kind of concedes that, yes, it was one piece of information, but we wouldn't have moved forward without it. So it was the critical piece, according to McCabe. But the conflicts with his wife, Bruce Orr's wife, number 3 at Justice, who worked for Fusion GPS, I mean, how can the American people have confidence in the integrity of the senior level officials at both Justice and FBI, who we rely on? Their integrity is integral to the operation of these agencies and to the legitimacy these agencies have in the American public's mind. And these conflicts alone, in addition to material actions they took and now things that they've said we're learning, do you worry that kind of the tarnishing of both brands may be unrecoverable?
Well, years ago, someone came up with FBI, also meaning fidelity, bravery, and integrity. And certainly the integrity part here among a very few at the top. And I want to emphasize that. I know people are repeating this, but I stand by because I was in the FBI. 99.9% of the agents, analysts, other employees are straight as arrows, and they wear, horse blinders. Just, give me the evidence. I work from there. There was a corrupt cabal that somehow metastasized at the top of the FBI, 6, 8, 15 people, who knows the exact amount, and they took advantage of this situation for their own ideological and philosophical purposes. Now, I say that, but I, don't think that some of these people, including Comey, didn't think they would also benefit somehow out of this in terms of their careers. Did Comey see a, Supreme Court seat down the line for himself? Did McCabe see himself as, one of the first insiders ever to be appointed as director of the FBI? As most people know, and your listeners know, very few agents, no agent has ever made it to the top of the FBI. Louis Freeh had to quit the FBI, become a judge, and then they appointed him. So was there some kind of a quid pro quo that was even, implicit that, hey, we go easy on that Hillary Clinton, we can get on the top here? I'll tell you what is happening, though. I just mentioned, 6, 8, 15 people. I don't know the exact number, but let's say there's that many people at the top that were involved in this corrupt scheme to, basically absolve one candidate from her wrongdoings, and at the same time, build criminal charges against another to hope he would lose the election. At least one of those people is really, really sweating right now. And they are going to be the ones that the investigators, and maybe the Inspector General's office, and maybe another branch of the FBI, another division looking at this, that person's going to want to talk. That person's going to want to offer a deal. And because they know what happened. They were on the inside in McCabe's office when insurance policies were discussed. And that's the person that everybody else is sweating right now, including Comey.
Are you surprised that Peter Strzok still is an FBI agent? I mean, he's been taken off the case. He was a while ago, but he's still in the building. I mean, he didn't pay for his crime, I don't think.
Yeah, I didn't know him, and I'm on this listserv of retired FBI agents, and they're debating back and forth. Most people are really against what's happening at headquarters. And everyone's asking each other, who is this guy, Peter Strzok? Did he come in as an agent? Someone, positive he may have started as an analyst? That doesn't really make any difference. But, nobody knows his name, and nobody worked any cases with him. Granted, we're mostly retired, and I guess the few agents on this listserv, they really can't comment, publicly on what they know or don't know. But he's one of these people that no one's come across in their career. And I'm sure he exists, and he's really in the FBI. But I am disappointed that he's still there. I'm glad he's doing HR work. I can only imagine him sitting in his desk from being the very pinnacle of the FBI and running these investigations. And now all of a sudden he's handling, people slipping, in the bathroom or something, if that's what it comes down to. So maybe that's just punishment for now. But boy, I hope before long he's getting some testimony in front of Congress and we find out more of what he was involved in. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a lawyer by his side and pleading the fifth for most of it.
I want to get your take on Bob Mueller and how he has handled the independent investigation he is conducting to this point.
Well, of course, it's being done in secret, and to their credit, there are minimal leaks coming out of it. That could be seen as good or bad. And I worked under him for the better part of 6 years, I guess, when he was appointed in 2001, and a week later was 9/11. So certainly trial by fire for him. I have no, personal animus or issues with him. I think he's a straight shooter. I'm not exactly thrilled with how he surrounded himself, and that's certainly a sign of your leadership and your management skill set. And who are your second, third in command? And it seems a lot of them are tilted towards one side of the political spectrum. That was a little bit disappointing, but he has a reputation to protect here too, and let's just hope he calls it as it is. And I'm not for dismantling the special counsel or firing him. I think right now, there's minimal there to be seen, and I don't think we're going to find anything of collusion. Certainly not any kind of a criminal aspect to it in terms of the Trump campaign. So let him finish his job here, and I think the public will see exactly what this is all about.
He is famed criminal profiler, retired FBI Special Agent James Fitzgerald. He cracked the Unabomber case that has been memorialized in a series on Netflix called Manhunt, where Sam Worthington plays James Fitzgerald, Paul Bettany plays Ted Kaczynski. You got to see it. I mean, it really is excellent. And also,
James, have you seen it?
Have I seen it?
Yeah.
I watched it being filmed, and I also watched it on TV, and have a lot of
and you also lived it.
Twitter and Facebook responses afterwards. So yeah, it was a great experience based on Chapter 20 of my third book, A Journey to the Center of the Mind. So it's a great thing. I was part of a team that solved the case. I wasn't the only one.
Right.
But that's okay. Hollywood sometimes, makes people into composite characters. So it was a great time working the real case and a great time watching again on Discovery and now on Netflix.
Manhunt on Netflix. The book, read the book too, Journey to the Center of the Mind. James Fitzgerald, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Dan and Amy.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.